A high of about 70 degrees. Right now we're at 64 in downtown Seattle. I'm Ursula Royteen.
From Gig Harbor to Greenwood, this is KIRO Radio, 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Fastest 15, it's brought to you by IRG Physical and Hand Therapy. They allow us to bring this to you commercial-free. This is our number.
It's time for the fastest 15 minutes in the news. This is Dori's Fastest 15.
It is a world of news in a tiny little 15-minute package just for you. Welcome to our Fast 15. We're coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio and streaming on Facebook Live this half hour. I got so much to get to here. One that I promised you from the last segment is we played for you. Joe Biden promises to raise taxes on almost every single American, something that Jay Inslee has also promised. And that's working out real well for Inslee as a candidate. Then you have another candidate who wants to make you have an interview before you buy a gun. So they might have to wait for the future of the party. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who decided to put up on Instagram last night her fascination with the garbage disposal in her new apartment in D.C.
I am told this is a garbage disposal. I've never seen a garbage disposal. I never had one in any place I've ever lived. It is terrifying. I don't know what to use it for or what its purpose is. Like food scraps? Like, is this environmentally sound? I don't know.
She's fascinated by the concept of garbage disposals.
In New York City, she's never had a garbage disposal?
It's all very strange to me. It's all very, very odd to me.
But you know what's really odd, too, is that she has so many people following her.
I know.
And
I can't get enough of her, personally.
I know.
I can't.
It's true.
It's fascinating to see what 16,000 voters in one New York City district can get into our Congress. So I'm fascinated by the whole thing. And then there's another huge controversy. Disney is remaking the movie Lady and the Tramp, and this song has been banned. They will not allow it in the remade movie.
We are Siamese, if you please. We are Siamese, if you don't please.
So Disney has decided that the Siamese cat song from Lady and the Tramp is racist in 2019 standards, and so they're going to eliminate this song from the remade version of Lady and the Tramp.
Are you going to miss that song, Dori?
No. It's just,
I will say that if
not?
I had
Why
to name
not?
if I had to name one song from the movie, that would be it. That's the one I
Really?
remember. Just that scene.
Yeah,
Who's
maybe they can
who's
do.
offended by that?
I think there would be.
No.
They're called Siamese cats.
Yeah,
There's-
I think it's. I think
Nobody
it's the way
in their right
that's-
mind is offended. A lot of people pretend to be offended by a lot of things, but they're either clinically insane, and we shouldn't give in to the clinically insane, or they're just pretending to be offended. Nobody in their right mind is offended by the Siamese cat song in Lady and the Tramp. We're caving in to imaginary offense.
I'm just reading through here what some would say are communist racist caricatures used in depictions of Asians during the 40s and 50s. Hey, if they can improve on it, why not?
But people are saying that. They're not truly offended. No, nobody's offended by that.
I don't think you can assign what someone feels.
Oh, yeah, I can.
No.
I can. I know how many people make up things just so they can, make nonsense about nothing. But okay, so anyway, we won't have to deal with the Siamese cat song when they do the remake of Lady and the Tramp. That's the big Disney news today. Okay, we have a lot of local news to talk about, including, I heard this woman in your newscast, up in Everett, there's a mom named Kate Harrington. She's driving down the street one day, and her son's bike, which had been stolen. They have a fenced front yard, and it was in the yard. Gate was shut, but somebody came in, stole the bike. And several days later, Kate's driving down the street, and she sees somebody riding her son's stolen bike. And while she's driving, she says that her kid loved the bike.
My son just loves that bike.
She talked to KIRO 7 News, and she said that she first saw the alleged thief at a pizza place in Everett with this bike.
Hey, that's my son's bike. And he did this, and I started to get out of my car. Actually, I got all the way out of my car, and he jumped over the curb and took off.
And so it's not the safest thing in the world, but she's driving down the street recording video of this guy on her kid's bike. And we've had her on the show a few months ago. There were a bunch of community activists, and she was one of the leaders of this group. They would go to local parks and pick up needles so that people
So they have a Facebook group that they've run for several years.
Yeah. And so she talked about following the bike thief in her car.
Telling him, hey, just stop and give me the bike. Just give me the bike and I'm good. And he started calling me some names, and then he told me he was going to shoot me, so I got my phone out and started recording him.
And she's
Because that's what you should do.
Well, she's got lots of video of him. He probably didn't have a gun, probably, but he might have. And she's got a pretty good picture of him on her kid's bike, and she says that she was getting ready to start, weaning off all this community activism, but now she's fired up again to keep it up.
I was kind of half tempted to just back off. And having this happen just re-energized me to get back out there and do it again. I'm really pissed. It's my kid. You know what I mean? And that's what it's about. It's not even about the bike anymore. It's the principle. He stole from my child.
I love, these doorbell cams that capture the porch thieves of the Amazon packages. Somebody like this who sees her son's bike thief riding down the sidewalk, allegedly.
Yeah, it's too bad she didn't call 911, or at least attempt. I know that maybe it wouldn't be a top priority, but if she's already chasing this person down, she can track them.
Yeah. She sounds like a tough cookie. She just wanted to get the bike back herself, and he wouldn't do it. So I like that, though. I like the moxie there. Okay, next up in the Fastest 15, the attempt by the city of Seattle to steal private property continues. We've told you rather extensively, the Showbox music venue down on First Avenue, it's had a lot of great acts come through the doors. But the owner of the Showbox sold the theater to a Vancouver developer. The developer's planning on building a 44-story apartment condo building. And now there are people who say, no, we should rig up the Pike Place Historical District boundary, and they wanted to jut out across First Avenue to just encircle the Showbox, which is the city of Seattle government stealing private property. Lisa Herbold yesterday announced she wants to extend the protection of the Showbox Theater. Now, here's the problem with this. When I first covered this story, I talked to a lot of downtown commercial real estate people, and I'm guessing the owner of the Showbox sold it to the Vancouver developer for somewhere between $30 to $60 million. And indeed, in the court filings, it looks like it was somewhere in the 40 to 50 million range. So I think our research was right on. The developer wants to make 250 to 300 million. They're going to have condos worth about 600 million in this building. So the property taxes would throw off $6 million a year. King County is going to reject $250 million in property taxes if the Seattle City Council is successful in stealing a private person's property. And I've said all along, if some people in the music industry who have expressed so much love for this venue, if they want to get together and buy the property and operate it at a gigantic loss, because if you pay 40 to 50 million for a theater that's pretty run down, no way can you make a profit off of that. But if they want to set up a trust and run it as a charity, good luck. But you're also talking about the taxpayers losing $250 million in lost potential revenue for that site. So it's It's pretty ugly when the government tries to steal private property. Nothing is more important to a free society than private property rights, and the city of Seattle wants to completely bilk this developer out of their private property. Next up in the Fastest 15, there was down in Plano, Texas, you may remember, there was a horrible mass murder. 7 people shot and killed about a year and a half ago. A bartender was just arrested for her complicity in this mass murder. Here's how it went down. Let me play for you. This is some of the Dallas TV station, WFAA, on why this bartender, who had nothing to do with the actual shooting, but she served drinks to the shooter before he went out, and she has now been arrested.
It confirms what we have believed all along, that what they did here was just grossly negligent.
A medical examiner says Spencer Height had a blood alcohol level of 0.33. That's 4 times the legal limit. Lindsay Glass was charged with violating the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code, a misdemeanor.
Well, there's 2 above her that we feel that are more negligent or criminally responsible than she is.
And that's the manager and owner of the bar where she worked. But let me explain what went down here. So the guy, the alleged murderer, Spencer Height, 32-year-old guy, he's sitting at the bar ordering drink after drink. At one point in the surveillance video, you see him pull out a knife and he's spinning it on the counter. And he tells the bartender, he goes, yeah, I'm going to kill my wife and her family. And the bartender says, you better sober up before you do anything. And he said, no, what I'm going to, and he didn't specifically say, he said he's going to do something horrible. And she goes, you better sober up before you do anything. And he said, no, to do what I'm planning on doing, I have to be drunk as can be. And so she eventually called authorities after he left, but he also had showed his gun in the bar, 4 times the legal limit. And then he went and murdered his wife and 7 other people.
Is there evidence that all that alcohol happened while he was at that bar?
They don't say, but she was the server. She's been arrested for a charge of alcohol sales to an inebriated person, and they're arguing that she should have known once he showed the knife and the gun.
And there's video of all that. There's video of all the drinks she served him, all of the showing him the knife or showing her the knife and gun.
And then she contacted authorities before he did all this?
As he was on his way. And she and her defense attorney says, no, she's a hero because she alerted people, but now she's facing, she could go to prison for serving drinks to a guy who ended up killing. And that's...
Man, I can't remember a case like that.
No, and I know there have been some cases when bartenders are charged.
Sure.
If you overserve and somebody gets in a DUI accident. But I don't remember somebody then picking up a gun, mass shooting, and the bartender gets charged for that. So it's going to be a real interesting story to follow here. Okay, next up in the Fastest 15, Nightline had a story about a 29-year-old beauty from Norway, Cecile Fjellhøy, and she was looking for a man. So she goes on Tinder, and she sees this guy. He's also late 20s. He says he's a multi-millionaire diamond trader from Israel. And for the first date, he sends a private jet to pick her up. And he starts talking about how dangerous his job is. She absolutely fell in love with him, as she told ABC News.
I started feeling okay, this guy actually is really nice and funny, and someone that I could date and maybe have something with.
So for about a month, they start dating, falling in love. She was going to school in London. He said that he was in a very dangerous profession as a diamond trader. And she said he was funny, he was charming, he was rich. He sends a private jet to pick her up.
This was the first time where I felt, oh my God, I really like him. And it seems that he really likes me back as well. You like the feeling of being liked.
But then he kept telling her, I can't come to London. My job's so dangerous. And then he told her, can you help protect me? I need some money. Somebody's going to kill me. And so she started sending him money for protection because she was in love with the guy.
How do you go from being with someone who's presented as a very wealthy man to someone who you now need to give money to?
It's protection. I know it's not right, but he needed my name as a cover, he said.
Protection from?
His enemies, as he's calling them.
Well, it turns out this guy had been in prison in, I think, Finland for 3 years for doing this just a few years ago. The private jet, he wasn't a rich guy. He would just bilk other women. He had other women who he would make fall in love with him.
He had a network.
Yeah. And then he would tell them all the same story, and it was this little pyramid scheme where he'd take one woman's money, use the private jet to get another woman on the hook, and she started sobbing on night lunch, explained, handing over. She ended up giving him $200,000. Actually, more than that. It was 200,000 pounds, more like $250,000. 29-year-old from Norway.
Like, of course he has the money, so he will pay me back. You didn't even think that it was a problem when you were taking up the loans because you were so sure that the money existed.
Apart from anything else, you loved him.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part of it. Like, when I realized that he wasn't who he said it was the love aspect, that the person that I thought that I knew and loved, he had just done this in the most evil way.
And she borrowed the $200,000 to give to this dude.
I know it sounds so crazy for people, but the sums weren't a lot, and I could see the spend that he did on my cards.
And then she found out from the authorities that he was just a con man who had her and several other women on the string.
They told me that they had long investigations on him already, and that I was a string of 4 or 5 women. I almost wanted to throw up. Everything just came crushing down at once.
So that's an online dating thing?
Yeah, that's why I don't do it.
It's just...
It's terrible.
I can't imagine.
Okay, but shouldn't some flags go up? I
Yes!
mean, within a few weeks.
Lots of
oh
flags.
my gosh!
And this
But
woman
already deeply in love with this man within just a couple of weeks, and
she's stunningly gorgeous, and she wanted a rich man.
Irrelevant, but
Yeah, it is, because I think she had already decided somebody who looks like me. I should have a multi-millionaire.
Was he handsome too?
I thought he was goofy looking.
All right.
But he said that, she said that he was charming and funny.
And rich.
He's good
And
at what he
very
does.
rich.
Just scam people.
Yeah. So anyway, be careful about that whole
Before you
online
swipe
dating.
right.
That's
Don't give money away.
Yeah, don't loan your online dates money, for crying out loud. And that is your Fastest 15.
This has been the Fastest 15 Minutes in the News. Fast. Dori's Fastest 15.
You give us 15 minutes, we'll give you the world. All right, we'll see what song Sean Dori comes up with, because I'm going to do a little Name That Artist as part of our Tuesday visit with Dave Wyman next. This hour of the Dori Monson Show is brought to you by Tulalip Casino.
Is it